Hey guys, so I just competed in my first ever chess tournament. Thought I'd make a video just kind of outlining what it was like. Um, Certainly it was an experience, certainly I learned a lot. And yeah, I thought I'd just kind of give a general first impressions, I guess, of what the scene is like. So a little background, I kind of started learning chess a little bit more seriously in 2017. Kind of after I quit playing esports. I used to play like Overwatch and Counter-Strike and stuff. I wanted just kind of a more casual hobby to compete in, and I thought chess kind of fit the bill. So yeah, I wasn't taking it too seriously at first, and then this year I decided to get a coach, kind of right around my birthday, um, just to kind of refine a lot of points that I had. And my goal wasn't really to compete in tournaments. It was more to just improve in general, have a better understanding. It's a game that I really enjoy. I think it's very interesting. Um, there's always something to talk about. You can kind of relate in some ways. You can kind of relate the way you think in chess to a lot of decision making in general. So anyway, um, my coworker told me there was a tournament happening in May. Initially, my plan was to kind of help him through it, help him to kind of get a good result, prepare him for the tournament. But eventually, he kind of convinced me to join and to just try it out, make it my first tournament, see what it's like, see how I did. So I decided to do that. Um, I initially asked the organizer whether it's okay. So I had to register with the Canadian Chess Federation because it's a rated tournament. So the CFC is just an organization. Every country has its own kind of federation. The CFC is the one for Canada, and all of them kind of tie into FIDE in some strange hierarchical way. FIDE is the official international chess organization, and they're the ones who organize like the World Championship and stuff like that. But what it also means is that if I wanted to, I could get a FIDE account and start playing rated games in that sense and start kind of getting an official FIDE rating as well, which may or may not happen. I don't know. I haven't really decided yet. Anyway, I made an account with the CFC, and because it's a brand new account, I don't have a rating. I'm completely unrated. I contacted the tournament director and asked him if it would be okay for me to play up a section. I wanted to play in the under 2000 section because my rating is probably around there. Well, maybe like 1800, you never know. But he advised me not to. He kind of said I should play in the at least in the under 1600 section or in the unrated section, which is where most unrated players should be playing. I decided to play in the under 1600 section, which offers a bit more competition than the unrated. And there's a lot of young talent, a lot of new talent, which ends up playing in these sections. So I was actually up against some surprisingly strong opponents for the section I was playing in. So Tyrell, my coworker, decided to play in the unrated section. So we weren't actually ever going to get paired up to play against each other. The time control for these things is subject to much confusion. But in the case of this tournament, it was 90 minutes for each side. So you get 90 minutes, your opponent gets 90 minutes, and then every time you make a move and you hit the clock, you get an additional 30 seconds added as an increment every turn, which means over 60 turns, you can bank up to an hour to collectively, which means the games can last for quite a while. These are kind of classical time control games. These are official like FIDE regulation time controls as well, which is how these things can be rated. Effectively, there was also a premier section for this tournament, which means there was a section for grandmasters and such to play in. There weren't any grandmasters at this tournament in particular. There were a couple of international masters. I think there was one candidate master, and I think there was one or two FIDE masters who were playing in this tournament at the premier section. And their top prize is like thousands of dollars, like $1,000, I think, for the highest placed player. And you know, people flew in from the States, they flew in from Quebec, from Alberta. There were a lot of people there from all over. My section alone had 50 people competing in it. The unrated section had more. it was pretty big. It was surprisingly big, at least from what I was expecting. The venue was at the Executive Airport Plaza, which is a hotel in Richmond. So, and the game started pretty early. It said it started at like 10 a.m. I think. So basically, I needed to wake up pretty early too on the long weekend. So it took place over the Victoria Day long weekend here in Canada, which was May 20th, well, May 18th to May 20th, which was Saturday, Sunday, and Monday, which was a holiday. So I had to wake up at 7:30 and commute to Richmond. And by the time I got there, it was about, 9, give or take. Maybe I'll grab some coffee or a little bit of breakfast or something in the beginning. And the pairings get posted. I see who I'm playing against. I have to sit down and kind of play the games. And essentially, a lot of the games ended really late as well. So by the time I got home, it was already like 10 p.m. So I may have had like an hour to see who I'm up the next day, see if I can prepare for them in any way, and then just go to bed and wake up early the next day to do it all over again. It was actually pretty grueling in that sense. The games are very long and kind of stressful. So I'd never filled out a score sheet before. The very first day was the Saturday. I got there early. I got there at like 9. The pairing wasn't posted until like 10 minutes before the match. So what happens is they've got like a couple of conference rooms, kind of like really large rooms. Actually, they had like 4 rooms, I think, that were booked for the tournament. 2 of the rooms were for players to play in, so they were just massive rooms, and each room had like dozens and dozens of boards set up with clocks and everything. So you'd have a kind of a vinyl board with these kind of FIDE regulation piece sizes. Like the pieces were big, and the board has to be a certain size, and the clock has to be a certain make and stuff like that. So everything has to be like it was very official. And there was like 2 rooms that were just like that. The second room was for the unrated section, which was very big and was basically just a lot of kids, just a lot of really young talent. And that I heard that from Tyrell. I heard that it was a very fierce section to compete in, although it was slightly lower rated than my section. So I was hoping to get more competition from the under 1600, and I certainly did. So what happens is so the format of the tournament was a Swiss round robin. What that essentially means is top half plays bottom half, and the groups are decided based on how many points you have. So it's a point system. So a win is 1 point, a loss is 0 points, and a draw is half a point to each player. So when you start out, everyone's got 0 points, and it's always top half plays bottom half, which means my first opponent was the bottom player in the top half, because I'm unrated. So if you're unrated, you play the lowest rated player in the top half of every group, basically, which you can't really know in advance because you don't know how the games are going to go. So the first round, I got paired against an old Asian guy who asked me how old I was. He was like, because I'm so old, I asked my opponents how old they are. And I was like, I'm 27. I'm like, how old are you? He's like, I'm 63. He was like 63 or 64. I can't remember what he said. But he was like a kind of an older. He was a very nice guy. His name was Henry, and he was my first ever official tournament match. And I kind of asked him for help to fill out the score sheet. I was like, can I do this? Can I like put the time in and everything? He's like, oh yeah. It was very interesting. So the tournament director comes up and makes some announcements, like, we have so and so players here. We have it's also taking place at the same time as another chess tournament in UBC. So there's like 12 top players who aren't here. Here's what you can and can't do. This is a touch move tournament. It's just a whole bunch of rules. And he's like, you may begin the match, and then everybody in the room just starts shaking hands. Everyone just like hands across the table. You shake hands with your opponent, and then the opponent starts the clock if you have the white pieces, and then you make your first move and you hit the clock and you write it down. So I had the black pieces in my first game against Henry, and that's what happened. I actually didn't like shake hands immediately. I leant in to ask him a question. I was asking him whether it was okay to write down the move times, and he was like, yes, it's fine. And then I shook hands with him and I started the clock. and he played his first move, and I had to write it down, which was, where is it? Is this working? Let's see if this is working. Gotta get this to work. It is working. All right. Why is the keyboard not responding? I'll just do it this way. So yeah, he played e4. Obviously preparing for this tournament. I'm not going to go through all the games in like super depth. I'm just going to try to talk about the interesting parts if I can. So obviously I did a lot of preparation for the tournament. I did a lot of opening preparation. I tried to even prepare for specific opponents that I might be up against. Interestingly enough, there was another player there who had the same coach as I did, which is a weird coincidence. My coach told me, like, hey, I have this other player who says he's flying to Vancouver to play in this tournament that you're going to be playing in, so watch out for that. So that was kind of interesting. I saw him, I met him, I said hi. His name was Sam. He was from Alberta. He's actually from Quebec, but he flew in from Alberta. And yeah, so I guess I made a friend in that sense, or at least I, maybe not a friend, but I just met him, said hi. It was interesting. Anyway, so yeah, I prepared. Point is, I kind of prepared a lot of theory, but I was so nervous the first round. I sat down and like the clock started, and I was just shaking. Like I was like, and Tyrell apparently had the same experience. He also he was also like very shaking physically in his first round. We were both very nervous. It's a very, very nerve-wracking experience to sit down like in front of a stranger at the board. You don't know how strong they are. Like there's a rating, like he has an official CFC rating, but ratings don't often reflect the actual opponent, the strength of your opponent. Some opponents may be very low rated, but actually could be very skilled and could be underrated. And some opponents could be overrated. They could be weaker than their rating suggests. So it's very difficult to kind of gauge who you're playing against. And knowing the time control, you don't really know how much time you should be spending every move either. I'm not a veteran player, so it was my first ever tournament. So I played e5 pretty quickly, which is kind of my preparation. This is what I was intending to play against e4 in general. And the game kind of continued from there. We went into this opening, and he played this early d4, which I knew, but it's not common at all. This is kind of a bit of a rare move, and he castled. And at this point, I knew that I'd seen a position like this before, a similar position, but my mind was a blank. I couldn't remember any of the theory. All I remembered was that the move I played, I knew that the move I played wasn't good, but I couldn't remember what the main line actually was. And he knew it too. He knew that, so I played d6, which is really passive. But essentially the idea is to stop this pawn from advancing, because he wants to do this, and like pin the pawn, push this pawn, and take my knight. It's a troublesome variation if you don't know it. And I was kind of scared of it, so I played d6 to stop e5 from happening, and he knew that d6 was passive and a mistake, and he tried to punish it immediately, which is incorrect. So he kind of lashed out a little bit fast and tried to attack f7, kind of just a double attack. But this doesn't work, and before playing d6, I thought for like 7 minutes. And eventually I saw this variation. I was like, this is fine. I'm hitting the bishop. I'm defending the pawn. And I guess he must have missed this, even though it's pretty basic. So he retreats the bishop. I played h6, and here I was just calculating because I thought he had some sort of f4, and I think that is his best reply, is to counter h6 by playing something like f4, and it gets really complicated from here. But he retreated his knight, and after he retreated his knight, I knew I was better because I had bishop g4 pinning the knight, and it's attacked once at least. So this is obviously at the very least fine for me. I'm probably just a bit better. And he also gave me a pawn. This is a gambit line, so I'm up a pawn because in the very beginning he kind of offered me this pawn, and I took it, and he never took back. So I'm up a pawn in this line. And here he kind of played a very critical mistake here. He played h3. So turns out this guy just so happens this guy did the worst out of everybody in the tournament, which is very sad for him. He's a very sweet man, but he lost all 6 games. So he had 0 points at the end of the tournament, and it was a grueling tournament, so I really feel bad for him. But yeah, h3 is a mistake. Now I just take the knight. And he has to recapture with the pawn because his queen would be hanging, and I just get a free pawn here. I still have this pawn, and his king side's ruined. And yeah, this game ended pretty quickly. We played a few more moves. He tried to attack, but I'm pretty safe here. He doesn't really have any real way to make any breakthroughs, and I have a lot of threats. So he had to do this. It was actually a creative move from him. I'm threatening to play this to trap his rook. Whoops, that's a drunk bishop. So his rook is actually like completely stuck in the middle of the board, so he saw this threat. It's like this would trap the bishop. Now the rook, he doesn't have any moves to go, and everything else is being held down. So he saw this and he played this very clever move. The point isn't to play rook back when I threatened it. The point is actually to play f4. So he saw the variation where he does this, and now if I take, the problem is he's attacking two pieces at once and I can't save them together. So it was a clever kind of resource that he played. So I saw this and I wanted to avoid the line. So I played this. He developed a piece, and now I get to do this. And I played b5, threatening c4. This would fork two pieces, so he played this to stop it. You can take en passant, so I did. And here he has to take with the queen, because if he takes with the pawn, I play check and I pick up his queen. So he took with the queen, and now I get to attack. So queen f5, I want to play check and then mate. So he has to stop that. He tried this, and the game ended pretty quickly after that. Threatening mate, he has to move. Queen h4, and he didn't see any good defense here. He just played knight e4. I just played bishop f1, which is checkmate. This was the shortest game, I think, and it still lasted like an hour and a half, I think. Like, we both thought for quite a while on every move. So even for a short game, it was like almost 2 hours long. But, you know, he lost, and I got my first ever tournament victory, my first ever game. It was a good feeling. I felt pretty encouraged because I saw that he didn't play very good chess. I thought, you know, the rest of the tournament would be a breeze. But, you know, it never is that easy. So the first round was at noon. So I forgot about that. So I actually had to show up early, not because the first round was at 10 a.m. It was because the first round, it was because I had to actually register for the tournament in person, so I had to get in a registration line. So actually, the first day I got there early for a different reason. But the first round started at noon, and it ended at around 2 p.m. And then the second round started at 5 p.m. So just about everyone else was done. So I had 1 point, so I got to play somebody who was the top half of the 1 point pool on the bottom of it. So round 2, I have the white pieces, and I was playing against the kind of most terrifying 12-year-old girl I've ever met. I could tell from the look in her eyes that she just wanted blood. You know, she just wanted to kill me. And I played e4, which is, you know, the main move I play in openings. I rarely play anything else. e5. Excuse me. So we went into this, very familiar so far as kind of following the first game, and this is also what a lot of beginner tournaments tend to see, these types of positions, this type of position specifically. But I actually know this position in some depth, despite what this game and the last game might suggest. So knight f6, this is the move that I play. And here I was very strongly considering going for a very sharp theoretical line where I play knight g5 immediately. This doesn't work in the last game that I showed you because white already played d4 and castled. In this variation, though, this is actually a known line, and this gets really sharp. But I didn't want to get into this kind of sharp, complicated game with a 10-year-old girl, because the younger they are, generally, the more tactically strong they are. They calculate very, very, very well. And so the strategy is, if you're playing as somebody who's young, you should probably try to make the game as boring as possible, like kind of a boring positional game, trade all the pieces, and then try to beat them in an endgame, because they're usually weaker at endgames. So that's what I tried to do. I played d3, kind of passive, but this is kind of this is all theory. Bishop c5, c3, this is all still very much theoretical. And castles, and bishop b3. So far we're playing completely theoretical moves. The next move for black is a6, is a theory move. But she played a line which I knew was illegal, like it was actually a proper sideline, but I didn't know any of the theory behind it. I just knew that it wasn't as good for black. This is not what I play. If I play black here, I'd always play a6. Actually, I would play a6 in this position. I think castles is a mistake. Castles is it's not a mistake. Sorry, it's a very, very playable line, but I think a6 is just a more challenging line for black. This is what I play in this position. But castles and then bishop g4. I didn't really know what the best way to counter this line is, but I tried to play natural moves. I played bishop b3, which in hindsight isn't very good, but she didn't take. She just kind of retreated the bishop, which is generally the right idea, but in this situation she could have taken and had a small edge. So I d2, just reinforcing the knight. Maybe I'll get to move my queen later. And she played queen d7. And queen d7 is a very, very aggressive move. Because what she's basically telling me is, if I ever decide to play h3 to kick this bishop away, she's going to sacrifice the bishop on h3, so that after I take and queen takes, you know, now she kind of wants to start attacking me really hard when, like, with all these pieces, and maybe like play h5, h4 or something like. And even though black is down a piece here, it's very sharp and she's attacking. And I was like, why would I give her a chance to attack? Why would I give her what she wants, a sharp position where she gets to calculate and potentially out-calculate me? So I just kind of instead accepted a, not a worse position, I guess, but kind of definitely a more passive one. So I started with the rook e1. My plan is to do this and then play h3, because now the sacrifice isn't as dangerous. So, but she immediately breaks with d5, which makes sense. This is kind of black's idea here. We trade. And I played knight c4. By the way, this all takes, like, each move I'm thinking for like 5, 6, 7, 10 minutes sometimes to try. Like this move, knight c4, I thought for at least 15 minutes before playing it. Because there's so many ways that I can go wrong here, and there's so many threats that she has. She wants to take here and take here potentially, like with this blocked knight here. She's attacking this pawn. So yeah, I was kind of really didn't know. I thought I was worse. I think I am slightly worse. But okay, so I tried this move, and we trade once, and then she plays knight f4. And here I was convinced during the game that I was worse. I was convinced that I was much worse. Because at the very least, she's attacking this pawn like a couple of times. And that's a very, very hard pawn to defend. Like if I tried bishop c2, which looks like a miserable passive move, she can just attack it a second time. And, you know, like, how do I defend this pawn? If I push this pawn, that looks very risky. I'm kind of opening the position up in a position where she's attacking. And don't forget that this knight is still pinned. So if I ever move my queen away from this battery, she can just take and destroy my structure and then come in with the queen later with a check. And I can't really wiggle away in any other way because the knight's controlling some key squares. So it was actually kind of, I don't want to accept this kind of miserable position. So I decided to play bishop a4 instead. Also, it should be noted, the reason I didn't take here is because I was afraid of this. I was afraid that after here, she's threatening checkmate, and the only way to stop it is to play g3. But then I saw the variation where she plays check, and then knight g5, and this knight is pinned and attacked a couple of times, and I thought this was much worse. I didn't want to play this. Turns out the computer likes this. The computer thinks this is fine. Maybe I play bishop d5 and defend this way. Yeah, I didn't like this. I didn't want to take the bishop, but turns out it was, I think, the best move. Anyway, so instead of taking the bishop, I tried bishop a4, pinning the knight, maybe suggesting to take here someday. Like maybe I want to actually like take this pawn. Anyway, it never happened because she played bishop h5, which I think is the right idea. I had to come up with something. So I tried knight f1 with the idea of going to g3. And I think this is the only position where she could have gotten any sort of serious advantage. But she tried queen g4, just going for the throat. And my point was to play knight g3. And I think this is the point where she decided that there was something. Like, of course, there are positions where she can play this check, and then I can't take. Well, I could take, but then this is hanging, and you know, this endgame might be fine for her. Who knows? But so she could go into maybe a slightly better endgame or something, but she decided to go insane and take on g2. And I was trembling this whole time. I knew that she was just going to keep attacking me. But when she took on g2, I was pretty happy because I knew that there's no way this is a good sacrifice. Like when I have this many pieces around my king, I'm not getting mated. So I don't care what she does. So yeah, she did this and she followed it up with f5, which looks insane. The point is she wants to play f4 and this knight is pinned. So when she plays f4, she gets to win back the piece. But I have way too much compensation here. Like this is first of all, this king is weak, so I have this check whenever I want, and I started by taking the knight and then grabbing this pawn over here. I was still scared, to be honest. In this position, I was so scared that I was considering taking with the knight and allowing her to win the exchange like this, and then going into this endgame. I was strongly considering playing this because I thought this would give me some sort of chance to actually, you know, take her to a boring endgame where I could beat her. But I decided to be brave, and I decided to just take with the rook, which I think is the better move. Basically, I saw that this bishop was attacked a lot, and she missed something here. Because after f4, I played rook h5, and after she takes my knight, I have this move rook g5. She thought I'd have to recapture and then she can take my rook, but actually I get to play rook g5 first, and now it doesn't matter what she does. She's just down a piece. So you have to escape, move away with her queen, and this was actually a pretty straightforward cleanup from here. There is one other thing that happened, which I'm not very proud of. So of course here, check and fork, win the rook, and here I have checkmate on the back rank, but I missed it. I just played rook e1 really fast. I was just like, yeah, I'm much better here. I'm not scared of anything. Rook e1, but then I looked at it and I slapped myself in the face. I was like, oh my god! I literally just over the board. I slapped myself, and she looked at me like, what? And then she looked at the board and realized what had just happened. That she had just blundered checkmate, and I missed it. Okay, so kind of a terrible slip up from me. But to be fair, yeah, she had to defend the checkmate, and now I just get to do this and trade, like take the rook and then play this. And then in this position she resigned because there's nothing left for her. I'm gonna walk my king, like this king can't escape. These pawns are never gonna queen. I'm just gonna walk my king up the board. I'm gonna take these pawns, take this pawn, and make a queen. And the game's just over. So that was game 2, and that concluded day 1. And I got home at 10 p.m. And I saw who I was paired against because the pairing was up on the website this time. But I couldn't find anything on him online, couldn't find what he played, so didn't really have the opportunity to prepare for him. I was still very nervous, even though I was 2-0, because now that I have 2 points, I'm playing strong players. I'm playing other people who also have 2 points. So round 3 was the most tragic, and well, we'll see what happens. I had the black pieces. He was a kind of 17, 18-year-old. Usually that's a scary age. That's when it's like, okay, this guy's kind of young and up and coming. His name is Aiden, and he's a Japanese kid. And he hit me with c4, which is not the most normal. I mean, it's in English. It's very, very common. There's like thousands of games in this position. But normally in tournaments, like in low-rated tournaments like this one, people play e4 or d4. c4, he's like trying to get me out of preparation. But I'm not afraid of this. I know this. We transpose to like a Queen's Indian type position, Queen's Gambit exchange. Like this is already kind of not bad for me. So he goes for this, and this is all very normal. Knight d7 and a3, which is already kind of a weird move. His plan is to play b4 and eventually to play b5, and this is called a minority attack. And he's trying to attack with this pawn minority. He has a minority, you know, a majority. He's trying to play b5 so he can compromise my central structure. If he gets to play the move b5, when I take, then this bishop becomes very strong because this diagonal, again, drunk bishop, this diagonal gets compromised. So I saw that this was his plan, and I played a5 myself, basically saying you're never going to play b4. If you play b4, I'm just going to take it. So he played rook b1, kind of insisting that he wanted to play b4. But I was like, yeah, no, you're not playing b4. Like, that's ridiculous. So I played knight b6 because now I get to play bishop f5 with tempo on the rook, and he has to move it. And now rook b1 looks like a dumb move. And playing b4 at this point looks extremely risky because now this knight's hanging, bishop f5's coming. Like, how are your pieces coordinated? I think b4 like maybe he should play b3 or something, but I don't know. This is already I think he misplayed it a little. So he castled. He also recognized he couldn't do this, and he thought maybe he could get some compensation by playing e4 and breaking in the center while my king was stuck there. But I wasn't really afraid of it. So I played bishop f5, rook a1. Essentially, I just gained a tempo for free, and now I know I'm better. Because, you know, he just played this ridiculous a3, rook b1, rook a1. So it's like 3 moves for me that I just got to develop all my pieces. So I played h6. I should castle here, but the point of h6 is that this bishop needs a square. And where does he go? If he puts the bishop on e3, then his pawn can't move. If he puts the bishop on f4, I just take it, and his pawn structure is ruined on the king's side. So he wants to play bishop g5, so I just played h6 to stop bishop g5. So, and he still can't really play e4. It's not working here. I calculated it. So I tried knight e5. I just castled, and knight e6. And maybe I think his plan is to play knight c5 or to get some sort of pressure on this kind of weak hole in my position. But I wasn't really scared of this either. I tried queen c8, which I think is a mistake, because it allows him to play bishop f4, because this knight actually supports the bishop, and we traded. But my point was, eventually I'm going to play bishop here and trade the light square bishop and potentially attack him. But it's not possible yet, so I played rook e8, e3. He's playing a little passive, knight c4. So basically we just played a very slow positional game, where we're both kind of maneuvering around very slowly, exchange a pair of pieces, trying to attack here, trying to create something, but he played f3. Basically, I'm just trying to provoke him to play some to weaken his position somehow. I want him to play some pawn moves. I want to have targets for the future, and he obliges. But I kind of think we both miscalculated this position, or at least misevaluated it. So he can't play e4 yet because it's not working. So he plays knight f2 so he can play e4, and so I just retreat my bishop so that e4 doesn't come with tempo. My plan was after e4 I play knight b5. But actually, if I just take on b4 first, I'm better. So I didn't kind of realize this. I misevaluated this position. But he played e5, and when I saw this, I was really happy. And then he played a4. I was like very happy with this position. The computer doesn't like it as much for black, so maybe I'm wrong. But I just saw that he had these kind of weird backward pawns. These are all weaknesses that can be targeted later. And it's very difficult for him to defend this pawn specifically. He can't play rook b1 because his bishop is awesome. His bishop's just controlling the whole diagonal. And I thought I'd have a plan of playing this, and eventually I just get a kind of nice grip on the light squares with my knight and bishop coordinating. This was my plan. But he actually has a fast reaction, which is knight c5. And I can't really play knight b4 here. I mean, if I do, I'm just losing a pawn. And, you know, I don't know if I really want to do this. I don't know if I want to go into this down a pawn. I don't think this knight is good enough to justify losing a pawn like this in this position. Although maybe it's fine, I don't know. So I played queen b6 and we traded, and now I have kind of a new plan. And so does he, with bishop h3. So this is my plan. I'm attacking the weak pawn. And I'm also attacking this weak pawn. So I just have a decent positional edge here, but I kind of ignore some of his threats, starting with f5. So the point is, he has to defend everything, and it's kind of awkward for him. If he ever moves his queen, I'm going to take here. But he actually has compensation in the form of some kingside initiative. So king f8, basically trying to avoid... Basically, when he plays e6, I don't want him to play ef7 check with tempo. I want to be able to just react to ef7 by taking the rook. So that's why I played king f8. So here, I'm not the worst, but he actually does have some initiative here. And here's kind of where I played queen e7. But actually, in this position, he actually has something. He can play g5 and actually break through on the king side with something like this. And this actually is very, very dangerous for me. So he kind of missed this idea and decided to play this instead, and I retreated my queen to try to do this. But once he got his queen out, I realized that he has kind of a very good reply, and I didn't want to risk this, so I just played queen b4. And to my surprise, he traded queens, because he just didn't like my queen there. But now I'm just clearly better. I take, because now he has to defend this pawn, and I take, and this endgame is just way, way better for me. He has so many weaknesses, and he can't possibly defend them all. And he kind of knew that he was worse here. My king is much better than his king. All my pieces are doing great. It's just a really, really good position for me here. This is like, I think, +2 or maybe even +3. This is impossible for him to defend everything. But he ended up tricking me here. And I have to mention, this game went on for a while, and we were both taking our time with the moves. So by the time this happened, this is like 3.5 hours in. So 3.5 hours into the game, I made a mistake in this position. I decided to take the pawn. I was calculating variations where he takes here, but I thought this doesn't work because I take with check. The reason he would take is because he's kind of discovering an attack on this bishop. I thought that if he took here, then this is fine. Like, I'm not worried about this. So I didn't see his actual move, which was rook g6, and now unfortunately I'm losing a piece. But my position is so good that it's actually salvageable even here. So here I'm losing a piece. There's something I can do about it. So I just took the pawn on d4. We traded, and now I'm down a piece. But I actually have a very, very strong pawn majority here on the queen side. And in this position, actually it turns out that I'm better. I'm still winning, which is ridiculous. But yeah, it turns out in this position I'm actually still fine. I'm winning. Just because these pawns are too strong. But I misplayed it. I was scared of all of his counterplay, and this was my last chance. Here I should have played a4, and you know, we would have continued something along this line, and I'm queening first with check. So I hallucinated. It's been 4 hours. I miscalculated the position. I played b4 instead, and now I'm just losing. And this is a very complicated endgame. But yeah, the Cliff Notes version is that he's queening first and he's mating me. So he found this awesome idea of playing this check and queening, and now he's threatening mate, and there's nothing much I can do about it. After I queen, he played check and then mate. It was a very tragic way to lose. I made a couple of mistakes, like this position. I just played in this position. I can already start pushing the pawn. I can already start playing a4. But yeah, just kind of a miscalculation. I think I was bummed. I lost a piece, and it was yeah, just kind of poorly played by me, and this was my first loss. So yeah, all in all, it was an unfortunate game for me, and it was 4 hours. It really takes a toll on you. It's very grueling. It's very stressful. But that's just kind of what happens. And I had to play another game in a couple hours, and I wasn't feeling very good. So I grabbed a bite to eat. It was like 5 p.m. Next game started. The guy's name was Dylan Fraser. And I was like, that's the most Canadian name ever. And he sat down. He was wearing like a Canucks hat. He was like the most Canadian dude I've ever seen. I think he was like 30-ish. He was like in his early 30s. And I had the white pieces, and I didn't know what to expect, but I was very nervous. I already lost a game. I really didn't want to lose a second game today. I didn't want to go 0-2 today and 2-0 yesterday, making me effectively just 2 out of 4. I really wanted to win or draw or something. And he played the Scandi, which is very interesting. I used to play this as black. I used to play queen takes, kind of a sideline. And I know this line. I know the theory here. I play check, and then bishop c4. This is theory. And here he deviated. He played something I have never seen before. But turns out it's an actual real line. I just didn't know that it was playable. He played c6, giving away the pawn. So now I'm officially up a pawn. So he has 6 pawns, and I have 7 pawns. So, I don't know. I thought I was doing fine here. And he took with a bishop too, which is even more perplexing to me. Like, to me, I thought knight c6 looks natural, like just developing. At least now you have a lead in development. Maybe bishop g4. I don't know. But he played bishop c6, and after queen b6, I kind of knew that this guy also wanted to kill me. It's weird that, like, with the white pieces, both the games I had, like, so far, both games I had with the white pieces were against players who just really wanted to attack me. Which is weird, because with the white pieces, you're supposed to be better. You're supposed to be nursing a small initiative or an advantage, but all my opponents were playing aggressively. So knight c3, bishop b3, and d4. The tactics work in my favor here. He can't get away with this. This is just better for me. If he tries, I don't know, if he tries like this and then moves his queen, I just take his bishop. If he tries this, I just still take his bishop. It's totally fine for me. So he has to retreat. So I got a tempo back, basically, by playing d4 for free. This bishop f4 was a mistake. And I castled. And after knight bd7, I knew what he wanted. He wanted to do something insane. He wanted to castle queenside and start pushing his kingside pawns. I knew he was going to do this because he was clearly insane. But I decided to just stay calm, which is what you should do in these positions. I played h3, which is not the best move. I wanted to play bishop e3 without running into knight g4, so that's why I played h3. But, okay, I don't think this is necessary. I can already play d5 and I'm better. So we went into this, and he played g5. And This is another pawn sacrifice. He's offering me a third pawn. And the point is, if I take, he's going to swing his rook over. Now he has an open file. And these bishops are monsters. So if he gets to play rook takes g2 check, he can sack a rook. And after I take with the king, you know, my position looks very dangerous. So after thinking for about 15 minutes, I took the pawn. Because I judged that I shouldn't be much worse here. Rook g8, and this was my idea, knight b5. We traded. And now, if I want, I'm threatening to play maybe queen c4 and trade queens, because this queen's pinned to the king. So he decided to play king b8. Okay, I gotta move here. So I played c4, which looked like the most natural reply. c4, c5. I'm also gonna attack you. He played h6. I traded the knight. And I played knight e5, which is a bit of a mistake. But my logic was like, I'm blocking this bishop. At least now, if you sack on g2, there's no there's no dark square pressure on h2 immediately. So he tries this, and now his knight's coming to f4, and he wants to pressure g2 some more. So maybe he's threatening to take on g2 immediately. So I saw a tactic that helped me simplify. Normally in these positions, what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to trade off all the pieces, because if I trade off all the pieces, I'm up 3 pawns. I should be winning. So I found a tactic that does this. So I played knight d7 check. After king a8, I just snapped up that knight, and he took my knight. So we traded another pair of pieces. I'm pretty happy about this. And my idea was to play f4. Basically just saying to this bishop, you cannot enter my position. I'm going to block you. I'm going to make sure nothing happens. I'm going to make sure no matter what happens, you don't have access to a good diagonal. And so in his lunacy, he kept sacking material. He played e5. I swear to God, he sacked a piece he sacked something every single move. e5 sacks a piece, but it comes with a very important idea. If I take with the d pawn, now he has bishop c5 check, and all of a sudden this bishop is very, very, very strong. And he could consider like sacking on g2 here. My king is very cramped for squares. So I have to take with the f-pawn, but the f-pawn is protecting this g square, this g5 square. So after taking with the f-pawn, he played knight g5. The idea is he wants to play rook g8, sorry, rook g5, rook g8 to double up and attack me further. But I saw this, and I thought that after rook f7, I was totally fine, my problems were solved. But he played bishop e7, which I didn't see. This pins his own bishop, but it also threatens queen d4 check, which threatens to get into the position. So I was very upset that I didn't see this, and I had to play queen d1 to defend. And I'm already kind of teetering on a very knife's edge type of position. It's very easy. So he plays queen h3, which is the whole point of this variation, or of this attack, I guess, is that, you know, now this pawn is pinned, so I can't take, and he's already threatening mate in 1, so I have to defend against that. And it's just not a fun position at all to play. So yeah, I'm already kind of, you know, flirting with a bad position here. Even though I'm up so much material, it's very easy. It's very, very easy for white to lose these games. And I'm over the board, and I've already lost the last game, and I'm very nervous. I just tried to play as calmly as I could. Queen f3, offering a queen trade. Rook g3, declining, obviously. And I was kind of scared, because now if I move my queen back, maybe he has this. Like, I don't know, this looks annoying. This looks really annoying to me. Turns out I actually had a tactic here that could have, that would have simplified, which is rook g7. The point is, if he takes the rook, his queen's hanging, and if he takes my queen, his queen is still hanging. So I get to simplify like this. But I didn't see this in the game. I didn't see it. Just looks like such an unusual move. I didn't even consider it. So I played queen d5 instead. And yeah, rook g8. And what do I do? Yeah, this is attacked 3 times now, so I have to play rook f2. And now my position is officially very passive. And that's kind of the seeds of a good attack are when you're playing against a passive position. So I already knew I was kind of in trouble. But I have some defensive resources here. For example, this bishop could come to f3 someday. and this would defend this g2 square very nicely and threaten the mate on b7. So that's already really good. Also, he can't really move his rook out of the way because I can play check and then checkmate. So this rook is kind of stuck. So his king is also kind of unsafe. When he played king a8, if he had played king c8 instead, we might have a different game altogether. So I was really afraid of moves like queen h5, or maybe even queen h4, with the idea of playing rook h3 next and rook h1 checkmate. But he decided to play something different. He played bishop h4. And when he played bishop h4, because he spent, this is where he spent the most time thinking. He spent like 20 minutes, I think. He was playing really fast. Before he played it, I was hoping he would play it, because I saw a tactic that would help me simplify in this position, and I decided to just go for it. So queen takes g8, check. Queen sacrifice, but this actually works out in my favor. So after rook takes g8, I play rook f8, check, and now if he blocks with anything, I just take it. So if he blocks with the bishop, I take it. The whole point of the variation of this line is that if he takes on f8, which he has to, I just take his queen, because his pawn's not pinned anymore. So this is what happened. This is what happened in the game. He didn't see rook g8. He didn't see queen g8, because it's not an easy move to see, but I saw this tactic, and I was like, this works. So takes, and then check, and then take the queen. He gets bishop f2 check, and take on d4. And this is still a difficult endgame to win, but I think I have better technique than him. That was my idea. Usually when players are just attacking you, it's because they don't want to go to a boring endgame. It's because they want to checkmate you. So this is a boring endgame, and I'm much better because I played e6. I'm saving this pawn, and after he played rook e8, which I think is a mistake already, I played c5, sacrificing another pawn. I've got lots of hanging pawns here, but my argument is he can take all these pawns if he wants. My pawn's much stronger, and my king is going to be better, and my rook's going to be better. I thought my position was better here. He took on b2. I played rook d1 with a sneaky threat, and he doesn't see it. He played bishop a3, and he missed my threat. My threat was to play e7, and now this game is pretty much over. If he takes on e7, he's getting mated, and if he doesn't take on e7, like if he takes here, I play check, and then he's still getting mated. So he tried a5. Sorry, he tried a5 with the idea of giving his king a square. So check, not taking because he doesn't want me to queen. I take his rook, plays bishop ce5, thinking that he's going to win this pawn, but in reality I can play rook a8, and he resigned in this position. After king takes, I play queens. So that's kind of how this game went. It was round 4. I was pretty happy with it, even though I was pretty upset by the end of the day because of that bishop takes e6 from the last game. It was such a bad blunder, and it was such a tragic loss after 4 hours. This game was only about 2.5 hours long, which is still a long time. Again, I got home at like 9 or 10. I got home at 10 on Sunday. Yeah, this was Sunday. And I had 2 more games in the morning. I was at 3 points, and I was already feeling a little under the weather, and that night I didn't sleep well at all. I woke up at 3 a.m. After a bad dream. It wasn't to do with chess, it was just a bad dream. I get these fits of sleep paralysis, which is really really unpleasant. So I got back to sleep after a little bit, and then I woke up again at 6 a.m. Kind of exact same thing. I had sleep paralysis. It was really unpleasant, and I couldn't get back to sleep. So I just kind of moseyed around at home for a bit, for like an hour before leaving. I was very hungry. I was nauseous because I had pizza the night earlier. I had some frozen pizza. Yeah, and I just felt like throwing up. I had a headache. I was just feeling so sick. And I just really wasn't looking forward to playing chess because I just knew that I was just really not feeling it at all. And I was starting with the black pieces too. It was kind of a really, really bad start to that Monday. But I went there anyway. I commuted. I got to the venue. I had a tea. I picked up some Gravol from Shoppers, and I just kind of waited for the round to start. Eventually it did. I was playing against a guy named Xiang Qian, a Chinese guy, and he was doing very well in the tournament. I don't think he had lost a game yet. He had, I think, drawn twice and won twice, if I'm not mistaken. So he was doing very well. And I had the black pieces, so I was already kind of scared. And I was again, I was feeling like shit. I literally felt like throwing up the whole game. So we went into this. I played bishop b5, the Spanish, and we went to Berlin. And he played a line, and I don't know what it is because they always play like these kind of off kilter lines. So he played this queen e2 line, which I knew was a real line. Like, I knew this wasn't just a random move. I knew this was a real line, but I didn't remember all the theory. I knew that I thought that bishop z5 was okay, and it turns out bishop c5 was the main move, so I played correctly. And c3, so he knew this line. This was also the main move. I didn't know this at the time, but I looked up later and see this is book. This is all theory. And here the theoretical move is castles, but I thought that I was kind of scared after castles of the line where he takes and potentially like snaps up this pawn. But it turns out this isn't, well, I mean, I am a little bit scared of it, because after this, maybe he plays this, and I don't know if I want to go into this. Yeah, I was scared of this variation, so I decided to play d6 instead. And now we're kind of officially no longer in theory. And he played d4, which makes a lot of sense. And I saw what his idea was. I didn't just play d6. I knew that he was going to play d4, and then he was going to play e5. This was his idea. This is exactly his idea. But I thought I had castles, and I'm fine. And I am fine here. The point is, if he takes, then okay, this can't be good. He can defend, but this still can't be good. He has to get out of the... Yeah, this is just a terrible position for him. So I castled, and he realized that he couldn't take on f6. So he decided to take on c6, which is actually really controversial. And then he took on d4. Check. And I played knight d5, getting out of the potential of any opening of the file, defending my bishop. He traded, and so far I've been thinking... I haven't been really thinking. He was thinking for a long time. Like, in this position, he had used up like 25 minutes, and I used up 2 minutes, because I really just like didn't feel like playing. I was just blitzing out moves. I was like, this is probably correct. This is probably fine. I was like, if I'm gonna lose, I might as well lose quickly, and not just play for 4 hours and lose and feel even worse. But I looked at this position, and I realized I already have a very dangerous edge. And he realized it too. I'm kind of threatening to play bishop a6 in this position. And when he moves his queen, his king can't castle anymore. For example, if I get to play this, where does he put his king? He can't castle anymore. It's literally just illegal. This is just a better position for me. I even have check if I want to be fancy. So he already knew that this was a threat. So he decided to play queen f5. And I think he thought that, well, now he's attacking the knight. And I don't think he saw a way for me to defend it other than playing this and then maybe losing a pawn or something. But of course I just have a5 here. And he can't play a3 fast enough because I get to play bishop a6 with tempo. So even if he wants to take on c6, this isn't good enough. So maybe he can play like, maybe he can play like this, and sure, maybe here I have to play check or move my knight, but this must be better for me. So after I played a5, he thought for a while again, because now he really needs to make a decision. If he castles, I'm going to skewer his queen and rook, and if he doesn't castle, his king has nowhere to go. So by this point, he had like 45 minutes left. He had used like almost half his time, and I was sitting at like all my... I'd used 3 minutes. I used like no time at all, just because I was like feeling like shit. But somehow he just like misplayed the opening completely, and I'm much better here. So my plan going to the game is I wanted to get a draw. I was like, if I can just draw with the black pieces, I'll be happy. I just don't want to lose. I'm so upset. And even in this position, I still didn't feel like playing, even though I was better. Even after he castled bishop a6, he moved his queen, and I grabbed the exchange. So here I'm much, much better, and I played queen d7. And he thought for a bit and played knight d2. And here was where I actually started thinking, not because I wanted to keep playing, but I was wondering how I could offer a draw in the most peaceful way. So I thought for like 10 minutes, and I decided what I was going to do is I was going to play queen f5 and offer a draw. So that's what you're supposed to move, and then while you're moving, you offer a draw, and that's how you're supposed to do it. And as I reached for my queen, like I was about to pick up my queen and move it, he got up and went to the washroom, because you can do that. It's a long game. You can walk around. You don't have to sit at the board the whole time. So as he got up, I was like, wait. I literally said wait, and then the people on my left and right in their own games like looked at me for a second, and I was like, never mind. And he just kind of walked away to the washroom, and I sighed, and I played queen f5, and I hit the clock. And I just waited for him to come back, and he came back. I didn't offer a draw because I had already moved, and he just started thinking, and I was like, well, at the very least, I get to play queen d3 check and trade queens, and then I can offer a draw. Because, you know, after I play check and we trade queens, I'm clearly better. I have 2 rooks versus a rook and a knight. So, you know, I'm up the exchange. It's a better endgame for me. If I trade queens and offer a draw, he should take it. He played king b1, king g1, and I was already kind of upset because, like, oh man, he just doesn't want to trade queens. But I played queen d3 anyway. But here he doesn't really have much of a choice. He kind of has to trade queens. He played rook c1, essentially accepting a queen trade. And I took it, and I didn't offer a draw. I was like, let me play a couple more moves. I calculated pretty deeply. I was like, this is what's going to happen. I'm going to play takes, you're going to take, which is what happened. I'm going to take, and you're probably going to take with the knight, and I'm going to play f6, and like, you're going to do this, and I'm going to do this, and I'll be like, this is what I calculated. He took with the pawn, which is probably fine. I think that's accurate. But I was basically afraid of like a position where now he has this passed pawn if he gets to win this pawn. I was afraid of maybe he can like get his knight in and then attack this pawn some more, and I have a passive position. But he took with the pawn, and I calculated for a bit longer, and I knew I was like out of my mind. I played knight b4. The idea is I'm encouraging him to take, so I can play rook c8, and I'm threatening mate on the back rank, so he has to trade rooks. This was my plan. But when I played rook c8, when I played knight b4 and he took, I realized that I'm not actually threatening checkmate, because if I play rook c1 check, he just plays knight f1, and he just got away with a pawn. He just got a free pawn. I have nothing. My idea was like, at least in exchange for the pawn, I get your rook. I get to have a rook. So like I can trade rooks and I can play in that endgame. So after I played rook c8 because there's nothing better, and to my surprise, he traded rooks. And I was like, well, now that the rooks are off the board, I actually have good winning chances, because you can't mate me anymore, and you can't queen these pawns very easily. So I'm threatening to attack this pawn in an annoying way. I'm threatening this move, which how do you defend that pawn? So he started moving king f1. And I saw his plan. If I attack the pawn, he's just going to push it, and this pawn is defended on b3. So I decided to play something else. I played knight d3, attacking both pawns. And this pawn's defended, but here's the point. The point is after b3, I play rook c5, attacking this pawn a second time. And he thought for a long time here, because he should. But actually, I have a huge time advantage now. I'm like more than 30 minutes ahead of him in the clock. So I thought I could maybe flag him even. Like, it's very rare to flag somebody in a classical time format, but this guy was playing unbelievably slowly. He played king e2, and I was already a little scared of taking the pawn, because I remembered what happened in the last game, and the game that I lost, where he offered me a pawn, and when I took it, I miscalculated. I missed something. And I was scared of taking the pawn, because I thought after this, he plays this, attacking the rook, and if I move, maybe he can like get a draw or something. Like I was, if he tries this, this is what I missed. I thought that after moving the rook somewhere, he just gets to, like, if I move my rook away, he takes the knight. But what I missed is I actually can take here, and if he takes, I'm taking here for free. So I missed this. So I was too scared to take the pawn. I played knight f4 check and took this pawn instead. I thought this was a safer pawn to take. He can't really defend it because he's getting mated here. And I knew that. I saw this variation as well, so I knew he had to push his king up. But I was scared of doing this because I was like, well, he plays this, and he's kind of threatening to win my pawn too, and now I have to play passive. And when you're in an endgame, you don't want to play passive. That's basically the rule. And I was really scared. I was like, I'm helping his king get better. When I played king e4, I played rook c8 anyway. In hindsight, probably I didn't need to, but I thought he was going to play this, and I'd have to play this, and then, you know, he'd make some move, and then I'd play, you know, like maybe plays whatever, some move, and I'd play a3 and we trade pawns. I thought this was going to happen. Basically because a4, sorry, because I don't want to sit defending this pawn. I'd rather trade these two pawns, which is not what you want to do if you're better. But that was my plan. But he never did this. He never played knight c4. He played king f5 instead, and I started thinking of why he didn't. And I realized that there was a tactic that I missed, that after knight c4, I can actually play a4. And he can't take because I'm winning a piece, and if he pushes the pawn, I'm winning a piece. So he has to move the knight, and I just take the pawn, or just keep moving, and I'm queening here. So I realized that's why he didn't play knight c4, because he saw something that I didn't. Ironically, king f5. I decided to play king f8 here, with the idea of maybe someday I'll play g6 and I'll get behind his king somehow and mate him. It's a fantasy, but you never know. So king g4, he kind of really didn't have much. He knew that everything is, like, he can't really move anything. If he moves this knight, then I might just play this with tempo on the knight and pick up a pawn. If he moves this knight, then my knight can get out. So, you know, he can only move his king. So he's asking me to prove it. And I was still feeling like total shit, but somehow I was like, I'll just keep playing and see what happens. I tried this, and he was running out of time, which is one only reason I kept playing, is because I was like, he has like 10 minutes left. It's an endgame. How does he have 10 minutes left? Like, I might be able to get him making a mistake. So h4, and I played rook d3, which I thought was clever, because I think I thought rook d3 allows him to play knight c4, which he did play, but I saw a tactic. After knight c4, because now there's no a4 anymore, because he just takes. Although after he takes, I have check, so he still can't take. So actually a4 is probably fine, but I saw a cleaner way to win. I played h5 check. And now he has to move his king, and if he takes, I'm winning a piece, and that can't be good for him. So he has to defend the piece, and I get to play knight e1 with a pin. And now the only way to defend the piece is to block it. And after takes, I took the pawn, and he resigned in this position. My next move, no matter what he plays, I'm going to take the knight. I'm going to push my pawn. He's going to get there. He's going to get there in time to stop it. But the point is, my king is faster. Let's say he defends. He's not fast enough. So, yeah. So by the time he gets to stop this pawn, my king gets to enter the position and grab all his pawns, and then I make a queen. So he resigned here. And I was flabbergasted. I was like, holy shit, how did I win that game? I felt like throwing up twice during the game. I was so sick. I was coughing. I was just dying. I'm still a little bit under the weather, but anyway. So the game ended after like 3 hours because he used all his time. And I had one game left, and I had 4 points. So I was actually like near the top, which means I was playing a monster next. I was going to play like whoever like was leading the tournament, like one of the top players. And as it turns out, sitting to my right during this whole game with the black pieces was the guy who beat me last round. And with the white pieces was the guy I was going to play in the round after. And we were all kind of looking at each other's boards and stuff. And what I realized later, what he told me before the game, the guy who was playing the guy who beat me, was that this person who I just beat is the person who beat him. was the only person the guy had one loss and it was against the person that I just beat. But he actually beat the guy that I beat. So the guy I lost to, he beat. And the guy he lost to, I beat. And I was facing him in the last round with the white pieces. So he was scared of me and I was scared of him. But not only that, he was also unrated. Like, he was also a new player just like me. He had only been playing for a year or whatever. He has a really good rating on chess.com. So I was really scared of him. I was like, man, and I was scared that I knew what he was going to play. I thought he was going to play Sicilian, and he did play Sicilian. We went to Sveshnikov, main line. And I was like, I don't want to play this game. And I don't think he wants to play either. So I was like, I'm just going to play, I'm going to play as much theory as I know. And I'm going to get to a position, I'm going to try to offer him a draw and see what happens. So we played a lot of theory. This is all theory. This is still theory. This isn't theory. So here he ran out of theory. So I actually knew more theory than him in this position. Which is weird, because if you played Sveshnikov, you should know the main line. Whatever. This is the main line. And he played g6. And I hadn't seen this move before. And I assumed taking was fine. And bishop e2, I want a castle. Rook d8, knight e3, stopping him from going, and also threatening knight d5 with the attack on the queen, potentially. So he defends that with knight d7. Also, this supports d5 in the future, along with bishop b7 supporting d5. I castled, and I played bishop f3. And here, I thought he was better. This is how sick I was. I was so sick that I thought that he had d5. I hallucinated a position where somehow I'm like a piece down. Like, I hallucinated a position where I don't have this bishop, and where we take, and then I hallucinated a position where I couldn't take this rook, where I had to play queen b3, and he'd play this, and I'd play this, and he'd play queen d6. And I'm getting crushed here. I saw this position, I was like, I'm losing. This is just completely lost. Because after I take, he's going to infiltrate the second rank. I can't play this again because I'm getting mated. And I'm just destroyed. I got nothing here. Like, the point is, like, after take, so I try this, he plays this, and now he's got a rook on the 7th rank, and this is just terrible for me. This is just a terrible, terrible position. This is a completely losing endgame. So that's what I saw. I saw this in this position. I was like, I'm losing. I was like, I'm lost. He should just play d5, and I'm going to take on d5 and pray that he doesn't see queen d6. I was like, I'll just take on d5, and I'm going to pray that he doesn't see this move. Like in this position. I thought after d5, there's a chance that he doesn't see queen d6. So what I will do is I'm going to take on d5 and offer a draw. I thought that's what was going to happen. But he was like shaking his head, and he was like, man, this position sucks. And I was like, why? This position's awesome. He played rook d7 with the idea of playing rook d8 and playing d5. But I still thought I was worse here. I still thought that no matter what I did, he's going to play d5, and he's going to kill me. Even though I was toying with the idea of playing knight g4 in some position. I was like, I don't want to make this complicated. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to play the move that makes the most sense to play in this position, which is a4, and offer a draw. So I did that. I played a4, and I was like, I offer a draw. And he was like, are you allowed to rescind draw offers? I'm like, no, you're not allowed to rescind draw offers. And he thought for a couple minutes. I was like, okay. And we shook hands, and we made a peaceful draw in this position. My heart really wasn't in it. Obviously, in a later position, I'm better here. I have a slight edge. Just because I'm challenging his entire pawn structure. If he takes here, if he decides to take, oh man, I'm hallucinating everything. If he takes, I'm gonna play c4, and after he attacks, I defend, and eventually, he has, I don't know, like, let's say he defends like this somehow. I play b3. The structure's awesome. I'm much better here, like almost winning actually. And he saw this and he thought the same. He thought I was winning, but I was so out of it. I just couldn't focus. I didn't even think I was winning. I thought I was losing. And he just said yeah, and that was the last game. I made a peaceful draw in a better position just because my heart wasn't in it. I didn't feel like attacking, didn't feel like playing. So in the end, I got 4.5 out of 6 with 1 loss, 4 wins, and a draw. It was not bad. It was a decent performance, I guess. I was hoping to do better. Still a little upset about that loss. But I tied for 3rd along with everyone else. Like there was like 4 other people who placed 4.5 points. That's how it works. Basically, it's a point system. It's a Swiss. So whoever has the most points is in the lead. So I had the 3rd most points. But because I was unrated, I'm not eligible for the cash prize for that section. But I did get the cash prize for second unrated, second top unrated. I shared it with the guy I just drew with because we had the same number of points. And the person who won top unrated was in the unrated section, who scored. It was a girl who scored 5 points against our 4.5. So all in all, it was very interesting. I learned a lot. I learned that believing in yourself is the key to winning, which is weird because I've been playing like esports for years and I never needed to believe in myself to win. I just knew I was better. I never had to like have confidence in my skills. But chess fucks with your mind. When you're playing chess, you could be playing perfectly and just think you're worse just because you might not have confidence. You might be like, I don't know if I'm better. Maybe yeah, something. Every single move you play, it's like maybe I'm missing something. It's terrifying. It's very nerve-wracking. I don't know if I'll play again soon, but I might play. Maybe in the future I might join another tournament. But yeah, it was it's like a stressful experience, honestly, but rewarding in its own way. And I'm gonna learn from these games. I'm gonna learn a lot from these games. I'm gonna study them with my coach, and yeah, we'll see what happens. I don't know. It was very interesting. It was a big tournament. The IMs won it. The IMs won the premier section. They tied for 1st. I got to talk to the American IM. He was like 2,500 FIDE. He's like a very, very strong IM. He was very upset that he tied for 1st. He wanted to win 1st. He wanted to get like 6 points, but he only got 5.5. He was like, no, I can't believe So I guess we're all a little hard on ourselves. But yeah, I don't know. It was all in all, I think I enjoyed it. On the whole, at least I enjoyed having played. And yeah, thanks for coming to my TED Talks. And yeah, I hope you guys got something out of this too. And I might make more chess videos in the future. So thanks for watching, and have a good one.